Welcome to the Unity lecture. So the Unity lecture is going to be about the game engine called Unity. Imagine that. I apologize ahead of time. I have to use this microphone here because when we get into using the program, the fans on the laptop are going to be going like jet engines. So I want you to be able to hear me, so we're going to use this for now. All right. So, Unity. Well, what is it? Well, Unity is a popular game engine. A game engine is basically a piece of software, or basically it's something that does all the hard work for game development. So it takes care of rendering graphics, playing sound, doing physics, input, networking, and all kinds of other things that are just like a lot of extra work that you really don't want to get into, especially if you're not into that. Unity is used by many developers. They use it for their primary game engine, so when they're making a game that works fine, but they also use it for prototyping. So they'll prototype their game to see, well, is this fun or not? And they can adjust it from there. So the work put into making it work on here is a whole lot less than writing your own game engine. So let's talk about what it's available on. Well, it's available on most any devices. Right now, I am running in the OS X operating system, the Mac operating system. But we will be running primarily in Windows. I'm showing you this in OS X right now because we will be installing this to a virtual machine because I already have Unity installed on my machine and I don't want to mess it up. Plus you get to see what it looks like from a fresh install. So what kind of devices does this work on? Well, obviously it works on Windows, it works on OS X, Linux, and then, of course, the major PC pieces here. And yes, you can make things for Linux with this. Also, it works on Xbox One and Xbox 360 and PS3, PS4, PS Vita, Wii U. These previous three here, the game consoles do require you to have a license for developing on those. It requires like an NDA and all kinds of fun stuff. An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. So basically, what you see you can't talk about. All right, so also we can use the Rift, the Oculus Rift, and the Gear VR. Also not listed on here, you can actually have a plugin that allows you to use Google Cardboard as well. So this is really cool, so you can actually get into VR stuff in Unity. It's really awesome. It also is available on Android, BlackBerry 10, and iOS. So all the iOS stuff here. So you can do a game on iPhone, on iPad, or iPod Touch, things like that. It's really cool. Now, to do that, you do need to be running on the Mac side for iOS, and you need to have a developer's license for that. So that's $100 a year, unless you can get it through student. Then I think it's significantly cheaper or free. That's cool, right? So you can develop for a lot of stuff. You can even develop for a few, I think it's Samsung TV as well. There's a bunch of different devices out there that you can develop for. And of course, one of the new ones was the Windows 10 Universal Executable. So it will run on Windows, it'll run on Windows Phone, a few tablet devices, and things like that. So that's pretty cool. All right, so let's talk about why would you use it? Well, one thing, it saves a whole bunch of development time. So you don't have to develop all the back-end stuff. You can literally go in and start dropping stuff in. Again, it's easy to prototype game designs in it, so you can literally go in, okay, well, will this level be fun? Let's drop it in and see what it looks like. It's also has great support for third-party plugins. I mean, you can make stuff, and there is one plugin that I'm just playing with right now. Is basically it'll create a space for you. You know, cool planets and asteroids and stars and all that stuff. It's amazing what you can do with this. And of course, there are lots and lots of tutorials. All right. Also, one of the great things about it is once you develop on one platform, cross-platform action is really easy. You may have to change screen size or controllers, but that's about it. You don't have to recode for much anything. Now that we have that out of the way, let's go ahead and start installing this. It's kind of an install here. So we're going to be using the Windows version, and just give it time to install, and you'll be good. So let's go ahead and drop over here. All right, so this is the Windows 10 that we used to you know, when we installed it earlier. So let's go ahead and Internet Explorer, sorry, or Microsoft Edge in this case. So we don't have anything really installed on here. So let's go ahead and grab Unity. All right, so and we're going to look at a few other things while we're here. All right, so this is the website. We're going to go over here to Get Unity. So there are two different versions. We have the Personal Edition, which is free, or the Professional Edition. You most definitely do not need the Professional version for what we'll be doing here. And that actually works out pretty well. The Personal Edition has a lot of the features that the Professional version used to have. In fact, you can actually look at a few more features here. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. Let's just say I bought the Professional right as they went to this new version, and they won't refund me. Okay, so let's go ahead and start the installer here. This is version 5.2.1. You may be running a newer version. This one adds a few other things, so just hang in there. If it's a little bit different when you get to it, that's cool. So let's go ahead and download that. All right, so this was a very fast download, mainly because it's just a downloader. So it'll go out and get what it needs. So you're going to notice a few things here that, you know, they're showing you what's, you know, things are made with Unity. There's a lot of stuff here on their webpage. So we're going to pop back to that while we're installing here. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. All right, so it's actually complaining right now. Bear with me a second here. All right, sorry about that. I had to go download Chrome because apparently the Microsoft browser would not allow me to install stuff. It's stupid. So let me continue on here. So we're going to start the install. All right. So what's really cool is it has all this stuff. It includes Visual Studio for Windows. Now, what Visual Studio is, it's a integrated development environment, so we code in that. They used to use MonoDevelop. If you're on the Mac side, that still does. But Visual Studio is far superior to MonoDevelop. Also, go ahead and install the example projects just because. They can help you along when you're stuck or you want to go look at something. So let's go ahead and hit next on here. All right, so it's going to temporarily download it. You can tell it to put someplace else. Excuse me. But that's up to you. So, so it wants you to go through and review all the license agreements. If you want to, go ahead. I already understand them, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue on, not bore you with that. Okay, so while this is downloading, this is going to take a little bit, so we'll talk about some other things while that's happening. Unity, their website has a lot of stuff about them. You know, games made by Unity. They have a great community. They have a lot of stuff. If you don't want to learn from me, fine, whatever. You can go in here to the Learn, and they have a lot of documentation and tutorials. You still may need to come back here and look at this because there's some stuff here that is pretty cool. Here is a fantastic tutorial, the Rollerball tutorial, if you want to play with some of the basics of Unity, especially if you're doing it on a mobile device. I wrote this on remade this on a Android tablet, and I was able to use the accelerometer to roll around with it. It's a lot of fun. All right, so a bunch of tutorial stuff. You'll download these here. They tell you about lighting and all kinds of stuff. And again, like I said, if this is your first time and you don't want to deal with me, you can run through the tutorial here. It's actually pretty cool. So we can actually look in there, and they'll tell you about the user interface and how pieces go together about it, and basically what I'm going to teach you here. All right, so it has all kinds of stuff here. Other things you're going to want to know about, the documentation. We will go through the documentation. I may drop back here occasionally to show you something, but it has all kinds of stuff. It tells you about all the little pieces of Unity and how to use them. It's a lot of great stuff. All right, so this is just the manual, so you can actually look at things, how things are done. If you go in here, it actually shows you, graphics how-tos and things like that. So how to alpha textures, basically textures that are transparent. It's really cool. So it gives you step-by-step on how to do it. Audio, so if we want to drop in here, the overview talks about audio files and what it can handle. There's all kinds of stuff here. The user interface, virtual reality, has its own section. So we also have scripting. So let's go in here and we can look at coroutines and things like that. All right, so you can actually go in here to the scripting API. So this tells you a whole lot more about what's going on. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Different pieces. Yeah, you can go in there. It's pretty cool. You're going to be using this a lot as you work your way through. All right, so let me go ahead and drop back here. And there are so many things that are made with Unity. It's ridiculous. And of course, people are like making all kinds of stuff. Still, you can make handheld games, things like that. Mobile games, games you're going to play on your own, on your PC, just all kinds of stuff. So, the games that are made by it are made on it. A lot of these you might not have seen just because they're indie games, and some of these are still in development. Things like Endless Space, just all kinds of stuff. That's it's actually pretty cool. And yeah, so lots of games, and I think these are only the modern ones that we're actually looking at. So I know personally I have made a few little games in here that are just about ready to be released. So yeah, these are the new ones, not just all of them. Oh yeah, these are just featured. So there's all kinds of stuff. So stories, all kinds of things. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pause while we finish the install here. There's not much going on right now. So we shall see you in a little bit here. Alright, so it's finished. So we can go ahead and launch it. I'm going to hit finish here and let it come up. So if you don't have a Unity account, go ahead and create one. It's pretty quick. So and I'm going to switch over to my version of it now that you've seen it installed. So alright, so we're back on Windows and we should have everything installed. That could have taken a little bit of time, but it's well worth it. There's a lot of good stuff here. Alright, so let me go ahead and show you around Unity. Alright, so let me show you what it looks like. This is what's called the default layout. Well, it's how it looks when you first install it. With no settings, everything, it's just, this is what it should come up when you see it. Alright, so we could actually reconfigure how things move, how things are laid out. We could do, move each one of those tabs around to make it how we want it. But let's go ahead and look at the different parts of this. First, we're going to look at the menu bar. So the menu bar is where a lot of actions that we're going to do are going to take place. This is also the quickest place to save everything. And it can change and does change as you use Unity. So certain plugins will give you new menu objects and other things like that. So let's go ahead and move on. So this is the scene view we're actually looking at right now. So this is kind of a layout of objects that we're putting in to Unity. If you look at the tab at the very top here, you look at the little tab up here, so it says scene. Alright, so this is our scene view. And if we click over here to this one, we will get the game view. Typically it's looking through the camera, what you see. So we'll take a look at that in action. It's kind of like a mini preview. So let's move on from there. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and drop into Unity and I'll show you that in action. So let me go ahead and drop out of here real quick. And we're going to start up Unity. Alright, and let's go ahead and create a new project. New, and we're going to name it something. Alright, so that's where it's going to be. We'll leave it 3D right now, and we're not going to touch any of the asset packages right at this moment. So let's go ahead and create a project. Alright, so this is Unity. It's in the darker mode mainly because I'm running the professional version. Let me go ahead and switch that back for you so it looks the same. Alright, so if we go over here to preferences, your skin personal. Alright, so this is somewhat what it should look like when you first start up. Each one of these tabs here kind of are repositionable so we can move things around, but let's not quite do that right this second. Alright, if you get kind of out of whack with that, we can just bring it back to the default there. You can drag these down to here, and you can reposition all these. It's pretty useful, especially when you get how you want it laid out. So it's pretty handy when you're doing stuff like that. I like having this over here mainly because I can drag stuff between the hierarchy and the inspector. So these are different parts that we're going to talk about in a second. And here over here is the scene view, and if I click over here, it becomes the game view, so it's a preview. It's actually seeing what that camera sees. So I can flip back and forth between the two and, you know, test stuff. All right, and some of this stuff should look kind of familiar to you from the Maya lecture. So let's move on. All right. So it's a preview, basically. The game view is a preview, and scene view is where we're going to put all our stuff. All right, so I kind of drug that around, actually. The hierarchy view, it contains everything that's in that specific portion of your game. So you'll notice here there are two things. There's a main camera and a directional light. Those two are key components that start off in your hierarchy. Yes, you can have an empty one, but what's the use, right? So let's move on. Here we have the toolbar. You kind of saw that while we were working around, so let me go ahead and switch back to that. All right, so here we go. The toolbar right here. This is what I'm talking about. It contains a few other things over here too, but these are related to other stuff too. We have different tools up here that I'm going to show you later on and what they mean. You know, play, pause, and you know, run to end. Yeah, these should be kind of normal. You've seen these controls before. So let's go back and continue on. All right, so we're actually going to work on a project as we work through this, as I show you around Unity. We're going to basically try to do a winter holiday scene. So it's going to be like a road and shops with lights. So it kind of gives us the, oh, and it's going to be snowing, something that doesn't happen here in Florida. So, you know, we're going to give something a try here. It's not going to be extremely pretty, because it's going to be programmer art or, you know, designer art, whatever. And we're going to work our way through it. I'm going to show you little things about Unity and a little bit of scripting and stuff like that. So let's get started. Actually, so this was kind of a rough sketch idea of what we wanted to do. So we'll look at that. It may come out to be something completely different. All right, so let's continue on with the different pieces of Unity. Right here we have what's called the inspector. You saw it empty at that point because we hadn't clicked on anything. This is the inspector. It allows you to change objects, change the position, rotation. You can scale it. We can add different features and functions to it. And edit those things, and we can texture things here. We call it applying material. All right, and the next thing I'm going to show you is the project browser. So basically this is an area where we have all the objects that we're going to use in the game. We can load and unload from it. We can drag them into the hierarchy and use them from there. So we have a few things I want to show you on here. The folder looking things here, that's exactly what they are. They're folders. They allow you to kind of group things. And these things can be things like this one right here. This is a script. This is a material. This happens to be a scene, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And this is a 3D object that actually are made in Maya and MS Paint. So, over here we have this whole thing just laid out in a kind of a tree fashion. So, it's pretty handy. So, the scene, that's kind of like a unit of, I wouldn't say measurement, but it's like a document in Unity. So it contains all the objects that are part of the area. You know, usually it'll be a level or a scene for inside that scene. So if we want to go from like one level to another, we can just load another scene, and it gets rid of, unless we do something special, it gets rid of everything that was there previously and brings in the new scene. So let's go ahead and look at one more thing. Actually, it's several more things. So we're going to start off with game objects. So a game object is the base level. It's like matter in Unity. Everything is a game object. They're just different versions of game objects. So let's go ahead and start off. So of course, like everything will be in your world will be one. The easiest to conceptualize is a 3D object. Everything we have is a 3D object in the real world at this point. You know, this is a 3D object. This is a 3D object. The mouse is a 3D object. The computer you're watching this on is a 3D object, I hope. So, 3D objects. Things like primitives, cubes, spheres, toroids, also known as donuts, pyramids, anything like that. That's 3D. Maya created models, and I might actually show you how to bring in a model real quick. So those things you make in Maya, you can use them in Unity. Then we have 2D objects. 2D objects are basically images. So if I go into MS Paint and I create a picture, you know, with all my artistic skill, and I bring it into Maya, that is a 2D object. It has width and height, but it has no depth, or one of those. It's missing one dimension. So images. We also have one type of primitive that is 2D. It's called a plane. So it's got length and width, but no depth. So it's, or height. It's missing one dimension. Alright, of course we could do whole games in 2D as well. You notice that 3D, 2D button that I did that I didn't hit when we first started that project. Well, you can set it up to kind of make your life a lot easier. Alright, and 0D objects, zero-dimensional objects. These are things that are like kind of control things. And things that you usually don't see, like sounds and certain types of light. Actually, pretty much all types of light, because they're basically a placeholder. So, we're going to talk about prefabs here in a second, but let's go ahead and go back into Unity. We're going to go into Unity and we're going to create a few things. Alright, so here's our scene. Alright, on my mouse, and over here's where I'm going to work mostly. On my mouse, if I right click and drag my cursor, it moves our editing camera. So this is our editing camera. Here, with the green, blue, and red arrows is our game camera. So that's what we're seeing down here. So we can actually move around, right click and drag, and the WSAD keys are movement for us. So don't worry if you have to drag outside of the window, it still works fine. Alright, so new term here. That triangle, or that pyramid that's coming out of the camera, That's called the view frustum. Don't worry about it. You don't have to know the name of it. Basically, it's what the camera will see, where things will be drawn for the camera. So if it's outside of that, it won't be drawn in what the player sees. All right. So now that we have that, actually, let's go look at this here real quick. There's one more object besides the camera, and you notice here, this is a light. This is a zero-dimensional object. So it doesn't exist, it's just a marker saying, hey, this is where our light's going to come from in this case. This is what's called a directional light. Just like in Maya, where we put that directional light and it just light came from that direction with no source. That's what's happening here. Alright, so let's go ahead and add something here. I am going to add, let's see, if we go to game object here, 3D object, and we're going to drop in, let's go for a plane. Hey, look at that. So remember how I said planes are 2D objects? Alright, so there's width, depth, but if we go down here to the edge of it, where'd it go? If we look at it from the edge, there's no real depth, there's no height to it. It's worse than looking at a piece of paper. At least the piece of paper you can see the edge, right? Well, this is a plane. Alright, so, and, oh, by the way, it's also just one-sided. So if we look from the bottom, we don't see it. If we go from the top, there we go. This is a plane. You'll notice it has these lines across it. It's because that plane is actually broken up into multiple triangles. Alright, so these triangles are it's made specifically like this because when computers are rendering stuff, it's more efficient for them to render triangles. Alright, so we have movement for this. We can move a 2D object in a 3D world by dragging this up and down. And you'll notice here, if I bring it down just far enough, you'll see this grid appear over it. Well, that grid represents the zero plane, basically. We can move up and down through it, but it's just kind of like a starting point. Alright, so of course we have the y-axis here. Why? Because we love it. Alright, we have the x-axis, the red arrow. We can move it that direction. And the z-axis, the blue arrow. Alright, so here's something interesting that you can do in Unity. You'll notice these boxes here. Basically, they're little handles that allow us to move stuff around only in 2 dimensions. So right now we're going to move something along the y and the z dimensions. And only those dimensions. So you'll see here I can't move it forward or back or anything. It just does that. Now if I grab this green one here, it'll do it with the x and z axis. So basically along the plane. Or along the grid. See? And of course the blue one here would be y and x. It's pretty useful when you're trying to align stuff. Alright, so we have that. Now if I take the, if I hit play here, it's going to attempt to run our game. And it actually worked fine. It's just showing us the plane right now from that camera. So you'll notice we're in game right now. And I can turn that off. And I can actually flip back here anytime I want. So this is kind of like a preview of it. Alright. If I double click on the main camera, it's going to, or anything, actually, it's going to kind of bring it into view for us on the hierarchy. So I can move the camera around and make it, you know, where we think it should be. hit play again, and you see it's there. All right, that's a plane. It's kind of plain. You don't see much. It's not doing really anything. So let's go ahead and drop a few more objects here. All right, I'm going to drop a cube, the ever-present cube. All right, so this cube is right there. Let's go ahead and move it. Whew, there we go. It's kind of part of the plane right now, but there we go. All right. So that is our cube. It's currently hovering, but I'll show you something about that in a little bit. All right. So I've just shown you movement right now. That's kind of boring, isn't it? So let's modify that. All right. So this right here, the kind of circular arrows, kind of like the recycle symbol almost, that allows us to do rotation. That should look kind of familiar. That should look a lot like Maya's rotation. In fact, it operates almost exactly like Maya's rotation. Actually, I'm going to just go ahead and say exactly like it, because it really does. So we can modify positions like this, and of course we can rotate around the camera, or around the camera's view. So we can continue to edit this and play around with it. It's pretty cool. All right, so also we have the resize one here. So it's like the box with the arrows pointing out. Of course, we have the middle one here that uniformly scales it. So we can do that. Of course, we have each one here. And I'm right-clicking again to manipulate where I'm at. So we can actually go back and hit play again and see this cube. All right, so we have that. Of course, all these items are over here. I will show you this next one in a little bit, but it's really cool. We can take this. So right now, if I move it, it's moving on its own kind of plane. So if I go over here, change that to global, it's now moving on the global X and Y and Z. So it's pretty handy. So if you need to move something like this, or you need to move it the other way, that works out pretty well. Now that I have this selected over here, I have something kind of chosen here. You will notice over here in the inspector, it has actually kind of started filling in stuff here. So we have our transform, also known as position, rotation, and scale. And these are all values that we can change on the keyboard. It works out pretty well. We have a few other things that right now won't make sense to you, but they're there. And we have a material here, which we don't have assigned, so it's just a white box. And then we have a button here called Add Component. You can get a lot of trouble using that, but it's a lot of fun as well. And we will be using that throughout this project. So I'm going to add another 3D object here. How about a sphere? Now, a lot of times these objects are kind of just out of the way in a strange place. We can modify that. We can tell it to, hey, reset this to nothing, to 0. So I went over here to the little gear icon under transform and chose reset. So that kind of reset it back to its default position. We can do that with all these other things if we want. Also, while we're here, we can rename things. And it renames it. So we'll look at that in a little bit as well. Alright, so we have a sphere here. And you'll notice it's actually casting shadows. These things are casting shadows. That's because our light is here. Now if I take this and rotate it, our shadows will change. Pretty cool, huh? And of course, you'll notice over here, over in the inspector, things have changed. Now it's light. It's directional. We can real-time lighting. We can change the color to whatever we want. Let's see. Let's change it to green or blue. Pretty cool, huh? Alright, so this is actually closer to real sunlight. Yeah, I know the sun's kind of yellowish or orange or whatever. But if you're thinking cameras, the sky's actually what's providing the light. So the sky's blue, so we have a blue light. Alright, so we have intensity. Of course, we can change that. We can make it a lot brighter or a lot dimmer. Let's go ahead and set that back to 1. And bounce intensity. It's a whole bunch of stuff here. So we have all these things that we can do. So you can look at those later. Change how you want. Of course, we have the directional light, things like that. All right. Let's go ahead and do something. All right, so I am going to, let's go ahead and delete a few things here. All right, so I'm going to kind of go into like this hand mode so I can remove stuff. Actually, I can go over here and just select both of these guys, right click on it, and hit delete. Right? Okay, I know it's scary, but it's, you know, it's something we need to do. So you can actually go over here and right click and, you know, create 3D objects. So you know what, we're going to create, I don't know, how about a snowman? How did I create a cube? Let me do that. 3D object sphere. Alright, so let's go ahead and bring this guy over here. Let's reset it. Alright, so there's the first one. Actually, let's do this real quick. Let's resize that just a little bit. Let's bring it, make it a little bit larger. Alright. It's going to create a second one. Actually, I'll show you something here. Alright, I'm going to click on this, right click, and choose duplicate. So we have another one, and it's sitting in the exact spot of the previous. So I'm going to set that, and we're going to scale this down a little bit. Alright, please excuse if I'm not doing this right. I am a Florida boy. I have never made a snowman. Alright, and we're going to right click on this and choose duplicate. And bring that up and shrink it. Alright, so we have this snowman shape. We could go in and, you know, make it a little bit more detailed, but this is okay for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of arrange this into something a little bit more useful, because right now we have sphere and then sphere 1 and sphere 2. That's just going to make a big mess if we continue to do things like that. So let's go ahead and create an empty game object. So remember, everything's made up of game objects. Well, you can kind of use these as folders when you're creating things. We're going to rename this snowman. Alright, and I'm going to start. Now, something you need to know is you can make things part of other things. So I can actually take this sphere and drag it onto the snowman. So now that snowman has a sphere. And we're going to do that for the rest of them here too. Alright, so now our snowman is all one piece. So if we move it, it all moves together. It's pretty handy. And if we're going to do something about that, we can deal with just the snowman itself instead of having to deal with everything. Alright. Let me go ahead and show you the next thing on the list, and that's called prefabs. So let's go ahead and pull up the here. Let's look at prefabs. Prefabs, like prefabricated houses or things like that, basically sometimes you need to do things in kind of a cookie cutter kind of thing. So if we want to do a bunch of snowmen, we could reuse that snowman. Alright, so things like bullets are also good candidates for cookie cutter objects, bad guys, other players, and a whole bunch of other things. And there are a few things that you need to create a prefab to do inside of Unity. So let's go ahead and show you how to create a prefab. Alright, so we have the snowman here. He's all ready to go. Let's create a prefab. We have two options really. I could right click on it and select prefab. Well, sadly that's not there. The best way to do it is just to drag it down here. So now we have a prefab. And you'll notice up here it's actually blue. That means that it's a prefab, and you can modify this, but it's best to modify the actual prefab itself down here, because it's going to propagate the changes to everybody else. So if I want to do another one here, another snowman, I can drag that in. Now it's snowman sub 1, or number 1. Now, yes, I could have done, duplicate. That would have been fine, but those snowmen would have been separate entities. So that's not something we want to do in this case. So if I go here and I want to modify the sphere somehow, let's see. Let's say that's too big. Alright, so this is probably going to mess it up because here we go. Yeah, okay, so actually let's make that a little bit bigger. Alright, well, just for visual sake, I'm going to modify that and hit apply. So you notice it went and modified all the other ones. So if you want to make a change to something that's kind of often reused, prefab is the way to go. So if I totally screw it up, like if I make some modification, I can actually revert it back to what we had before. Alright, so this is our prefab. If we click the arrow here, it shows all the little different parts to it, and it's pretty cool. And we can do things like rotate it, turn it upside down, whatever. But yeah, each one is its own special one, and the prefab allows us to do all kinds of crazy different things. Fortunately, we're not going to be able to get to show you on that because it's a lot of stuff going on. All right, so I've shown you creating primitives. So we created the sphere and the cube. in a plane. There are other primitives there that they work the same exact way. Showing you scaling by using the scale button here. And that, of course, lets us scale stuff. And so change the size of it. So we can make a giant snowman or something like that. Next, we have rotation. So let's go ahead and hit, oops, didn't mean to do that. All right, so we've gone into what's called 2D mode. It's kind of break stuff if you're working in 3D. So don't do that. All right, so let's look at rotation here. All right, so if we go to rotation, we can actually rotate it. Again, remember, rotation. All right, and we have translation. This is our translation. Remember, translation. All right, so let's say we want to import something. So I want to import, how about we import some wood that we used on that wooden cube in Maya. So let me go ahead and see if I can bring that in here. So we can import, we go to assets, import new asset, and it's going to bring up kind of this dialog box here. You know, hey, what do you want to do? So I didn't put it on there. It must be on the Mac. Let's go ahead and go find that. There it is. Import. All right, so now we have this wood texture. All right, that's pretty cool. We can bring things in and even kind of use it. Well, not right this moment, but actually, we just did. That's a new shortcut. You used to not be able to do that. So let's go undo that because I guess this is supposed to be a snow-covered plane. But you get the idea. You can bring stuff in. It's pretty cool. All right, so actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and let me show you how to assign a material. So one of the cool things is it just created a material for us. So this is a material. It's kind of like a texture. Well, it is a texture. You can make all kinds of changes to it. So over here is where the texture is. So if I click on that, it shows where it came from, and you can drag others in there if you need to. We can modify the color if we want. So if I add some red to it, it actually changes the color of the texture itself. So this is a modifier. Other things like you can make it metallic and change smoothness and so all kinds of other things that someday you might want to learn about. Okay, so we have that. That's how you create a material. It's a lot easier now than it used to be. You can add it to that. Hey, look. Drag it right on it. And now we have a material. All right, so we can actually go in here. You'll notice down here that it's actually showing up as a material. We can change the shader on it. Let's see. Let's see. I don't think there's really anything here that I've loaded right now that would be really cool. Yeah, I think there's nothing here that's loaded. I'd have to go find some here. Actually, let's make it reflective. I don't think we're going to do too much. Yeah, so we can make it kind of have strange properties. So let's not do that. Let's actually undo that. We don't need a wooden snowman. All right, so now that we've kind of seen that, we can, manage these. So we can actually drag them around a little bit. We could create more kind of container objects. Alright, so actually right now that's part of what's part of that snowman too. So I can actually take all these guys. If I like the way they're laid out and everything, I can actually drag them into here, into the snow stuff. So now they're kind of these children of snow stuff. And inside each snowman, there's 3 children each sphere here. So I can hide that away as well. Alright, so those are, this is kind of the hierarchy over here, where everything's laid out, how things relate to each other, where we see all this stuff, where we can add things, we can move them, we can delete them, and sometimes their position inside of that does actually matter. It's their, usually their rendering position, but don't worry about that for now. The next thing I want to show you in here, actually, yeah, the next thing I want to go ahead and show you is scripting. A little bit of scripting. You're like, oh no, that's some crazy stuff. So what is it for? Well, scripting is vitally important to making games, because without it, you're going to have a nice pretty scene and that's it. Nothing fancy. It's not going to do anything. It's just going to look pretty. It may not even look pretty. Alright, so it can be useful things like changing color of an object to doing full game AI and everything in between for networking and things like that too. Alright, so Unity supports 3 different languages, and those 3 languages basically just different ways of writing the script. So let's go ahead and look at those 3. So we have C# and JavaScript and Boo. Alright, so we're going to start off with C#. Yeah, that's pronounced C#. It's a pain when you're trying to search it on Google sometimes, because sometimes it'll drop the sharp. And you have to just... It's gotten better in the last few years, so... it's used in many places besides just Unity. It's actually used all over the place. You can use it in making Windows applications. You can make applications for different mobile devices. You can do all kinds of things with C#. It's really cool. If you learn it, it's a very good tool to have. JavaScript, it's also pretty well used. It is widely supported. You're going to find all kinds of help on it. Both in the C# and JavaScript, you're not going to run into issues on finding help writing this stuff or learning it. It's a little bit less efficient than C#. It's debatable sometimes, but I like to see it as being a little bit less, it's less powerful, in my opinion. And of course, though, people go one way and people go the other way, but that's like a religious conversation for programmers. Alright, then there's Boo. Well, it's there, but it's Boo really was only truly used in Unity, and don't worry about it. No one uses it anymore, and they're kind of getting rid of it. In fact, I didn't see much in the new Unity documentation for it, so it's probably already gone. So don't worry about Boo. We're just going to work with C# for now. If you're more comfortable with JavaScript, you can use it. I'm not going to be able to help you as much. I don't have as much experience in JavaScript as I do in C#. So let's get started. All right. So, I know you're probably thinking, oh no, you have to learn to program. Just a little bit. It's not bad. So there are a few things that we need to kind of get out of the way here. I need to teach you about variables. Basically, a variable is a place to store data. And there are different types of variables and so on and so forth. So, actually, before we get too far into this, I want to show you a little bit. I want to show you how to create a script and, well, create the file for it and a little bit about it. All right, so let's go ahead and swap over here. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I am going to create a new 3D object. We're going to make a sphere. First, I'm going to drag it up here, bring it somewhat near to us. It's actually quite far off. It's just that the controls here aren't scaling, which is good because it makes it easier to move. All right, so we have the sphere here. It's not doing anything. You know what? Let's go ahead and throw the wood texture on it to you know, make it look different. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to hit Add Component. All right, so this brings us up this list of different things that we can add to it. We can add meshes, effects, physics, all kinds of stuff to it. But I am going to create a new script. So usually there will be a script in here, but I haven't made any on this one yet. So we're going to create a new one. All right. So here is kind of how you create one. Right now it's called New Behavior Script, and that's behavior as in the English spelling of behavior, not the American spelling. You may notice things like that around. Not as much in the user interface because they can customize that, but this is kind of part of code, so they really didn't change it. So here's where you choose the language of the script you're creating. So right now we have C#. Oh, hey, they've officially removed boo. Fantastic. So it's no longer there. All right, so don't worry about boo ever again. Cool. But if you're looking through some documentation or older documentation, you may see boo referenced. So don't worry about it. Go ahead. You can either, let's call this a test script. All right. So what we have here, you'll notice there are no spaces. The reason for that is that it won't accept spaces. It's kind of bad juju. Now, to kind of separate words, we could use dashes or underscores and things like that. But the best case here is what we're using is called camel caps. Basically, it gives these kind of separations because we're using uppercase to kind of denote the beginning of a letter. Camel caps or camel case. Same basic idea. Now, sometimes the proper way to do it is make this a lowercase. That's fine. It's up to you. Or in your employer, how they decide to manage this. So I'm going to go ahead and create an add. So you'll notice here it's now part of the whole object. So it's part of the inspector. It's called test script, and it just added one down here. So these two are the same file. If I double click on this, it's actually going to bring up a code editor. All right, so the proper term for a code editor is called a integrated development environment. All right, so this is what's called Visual Studio. If you're running an older version, or for some reason you didn't reboot after installing Unity, you might get the older one, the MonoDevelop. All right, so MonoDevelop will get you through what you need to do. But in my opinion, in the opinion of a lot of other people, Visual Studio is so much better. All right, so we have Visual Studio here. I know it looks scary. Don't worry about it. I'll show you pretty much everything you need to know about this. All right, so in here, this is our code. This is what we just created here. All right, right now, don't worry about anything else on screen. Just worry about this section here. This is our code. And we have two things here that I want to show you. we have two pieces of code that will be run, and they're run at very specific times. This one, right here, start, is run at the creation of the object that it's attached to. So if we go back here to Unity, it's run at the creation of the sphere. And that happens at the very beginning of when we hit play in this case. So I go back here, that happens here. And in here, in update, this is called once per frame. So it's constantly called over and over and over again, many times a second. It just depends on what you set your frame rate to be, your target frame rate to be, is how often it'll run. So if you want to do something once, you can write it in there. If you want to do it a bunch of times, you can do it in there. And we have a bunch of different things we can write to do it different times. So, well, let's get started. Let's start talking about things that we initially started out here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and press enter here a few times so it's easier for you to see. All right, this black bar is showing you what line I'm on and all that stuff. The yellow one is showing you what I've modified. Don't worry about that too much. All right, so I'm going to show you variables. All right, so variables are basically a place we can store information. All right, things like numbers or strings, basically words, or Boolean values, true or false, or floating point numbers, which are basically numbers with decimal points. We have all kinds of stuff. We could even represent objects in the game. So let's get started. We're going to look at ints. We're going to create an int, an integer. If you remember what an integer was from math a long time ago, an integer is a whole number. All right, so I'm going to create one called I for integer. Makes sense, right? And I'm going to do what's called an assignment. So I hit the equal sign, and I'm going to fill it in with a 0. All right. This is an integer. This is a variable of type integer or int. All right, so you're going to notice here there's kind of squiggly lines, like you kind of see in a word processor or any place else. Yes, it means the same basic idea. There's something wrong here. In this case, it's saying, "Hey, I'm missing something." First of all, pretty much every line that you enter in C# is going to end in a semicolon. So that's on US keys, that's the one that's right next to the L. So it's a period and a comma. All right. So this other one, green one, saying it's probably that you created it, but we're not using it. Don't worry about it. So an int is an integer. All right. We can assign many things to it. We can assign a 1 to it, a 5, a 9001. No, 9001. Sure. But we cannot assign it 9001.3. We can't do that. In fact, it's telling us at this point, you can't do that. That's wrong. So an integer can only have whole numbers. We could go negative, but they have to be a whole number. All right. The next one I want to show you is a string. All right. And let's call it name. No. Name. All right. And I'm going to assign it something. I'm going to say all right, so doing it like this is bad. It's saying I don't know what to do with that. But to create a string, we have to surround it with parentheses, or not parentheses, quotation marks. So you start with a quotation mark, you end with one. And of course, at the very end here, I'm going to put a semicolon. So now we have a string here, a variable that can contain text. Now, that could be a name, it could be a number, it could be whatever. And we can do things with that. Let's see. Name and number. We can do things with that. Name plus I. So we can do things like that. Very strange, but it works. Let's see. Then we have things like floating point values. So if you wanted to store something that was not a whole number, we use something called a floating point number. All right. So let's see. Oh, we're in Florida. Let's do altitude, or altitude above sea level. So I probably misspelled that. So let's go, I don't know, 20.35 for our feet above sea level. I don't know what it is here right now. We could look that up if we really want. Now, it's going, I don't know what to do with this. What you need to do is you need to add a little F at the end so it knows it's a floating point number. There's another one. We're not going to deal with that now, for now. All right, so all of these are variables. And remember how I said there was, everything is made up of game objects? Well, there's a variable called game object. All right, so that's that's its own type of variable called an object or something. I can't use that actually because that's already in use. Let's call this arrows object. All right, so right now we don't have anything assigned to it, but we can. All right, so these are basic variables here. Now, we can use these inside of this start here. But we're actually going to come back to that in a minute, so I want to go over a few other things with you before we continue on. So let's go ahead and come back to that. So variables, again, are where we store our data, whether it's strings or numbers or objects. So let's move on here. Basic math is pretty easy. You kind of saw a little bit in action there, but I'm going to go ahead and swap back out over there. Let's look at some basic math here. All right, so let's create an int, and we're going to call it result. And we're going to assign into it. So assignment is basically where we take something and put it into something else. Let's go 40 plus 2. We just added 2 to 40 and we're assigning it into result. That's not the only thing we can do. well, we can go back here. Now, you'll notice that we have int there. That's just saying we want to create an integer or a game object or whatever type it is. Now, if we want to reuse that one, we can. So we can go result. All right, so it's highlighting saying, hey, this is where you created it. We can also do assign into it 56 and subtract 6. So now we'd have a 50 on that. Or we could do this. 10 times 32. Let's say 25 divided by 5. These are some basic math operations. Also, if you want to find the remainder of something, let's say 23 remainder of 6. So it will give us back the remainder from that. It's called modulus. So it basically gives us back that. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on a little bit. Let's see what we have here next for you. So actually, before we get to functions, let's actually run this code. Let's see what it does. All right, so this is going to be a little bit complicated, so keep an eye out. You may have to repeat it. That's okay. Completely fine. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. Control S is a save. All right, so since we're not going to see this running, and it's not going to show us anything at this point, I am going to show you something called debugging. All right, so this is kind of something really important you're going to have to deal with. Now you notice if I bring my cursor over here, the cursor changes a little bit. This is kind of a special area. If I click here, I'm sorry, if we go over here, if I click there, it's going to put a red dot. This is what's called a breakpoint. And it's like a stop sign for code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Visual Studio to start talking to Unity. So I'm going to go ahead and hit attach to Unity. Alright, don't worry about the stuff down here right now. As long as it doesn't say errors, we're good. Alright, so this is now saying, hey, I'm ready to go. Let's go ahead and switch back over here to Unity itself. I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And if we give it a second here, it's going to pop over here to Visual Studio all on its own. So you'll notice here that this line of code is now yellow. And over here there's a little yellow arrow saying this is where I'm running at right now. Okay, so it hasn't executed that line of code yet. So we're going to have to tell it to move on a little bit. So we have some different buttons up here. Alright, don't worry about anything like this over here. It's a little much for you to worry about right now. But you'll notice we have these arrows here. So, show next statement, step into, step over, step out, and continue over here. Alright, you'll notice that we also have a pause and a stop and a restart button. That basically allows us to go, well, this is exactly what it is. Right now we are kind of paused as it is. We could, if we want, we could create more of these breakpoints along the way. We just have to click here. And if we hit continue, it would run to the next one. But we can also hit this show next statement, where it's going to continue on and not do exactly what I'm telling it to. I'm sorry. Hit the step over. So step over will bring us to the next one. And you'll notice it's actually done this right now. So it's created the integer I, and added into it the value of 9001. All right, so down here it's actually showing what's happening. So we have the value of 9001 in I, and we can actually see that on screen here. Right now, if we hold over name, there's nothing in it. It's null. It means there's nothing there. If we go to step over again, it will continue on. All right, so now it's assigned in the string, my name here, into name. All right, so names here, numbers here. Right now it hasn't been assigned in, so we're going to do it one more time here. All right, so if we look at name and number, it's now added that in there without a space because we didn't tell it to do a space, but it's done that. So right now altitude is 0, F means 0, means value of 0. So we'll go ahead and step over that and have it assign that in. So now it's 20.35 F float. It didn't do anything here because we didn't tell it to do anything. Now we can actually start looking at our math here. So right now result is 0. So let's step over this, and it's going to compute this. It's going to put 42 in. All right. If we step over it again, it's going to do this. It did this, so it's going to take 56 and subtract it off, and now we have 50. All right. So the next thing it's going to do now. Before we run this next one, it still has the result from the previous one. So we can step over, and it's going to, now it's 320, and then it's still 320 down there. We can keep doing that. Now you notice here, if I hold my cursor over it, it pops up this little white box that says step over, and it says F10. We can use our keyboard to do that, so we don't have to click every time. The problem is if we hit F10, it's going to mute our machine. But to use that, we hold down FN, the FN key down in the bottom left-hand corner, and we can hit F10. All right, so it's done that. So 25 divided by 5, yeah, 5, and then we can do it one more time here, and now result is 5 on there because that was what was left, the remainder. So it'd be like 20 remainder, or 18 remainder 5. Okay, so right now it's at the end of this function. It's done. It's going to try to continue on, but it's actually going to come back here and show us some stuff. Excuse me. And it was only going to do that once because that's in startup. All right, so if we had done that down here in update, it would be just continuously doing it. If you want to turn these off, because you don't need it anymore, you can just click on it again. All right, so let's go ahead and stop that, and let's continue on here. That's not what I wanted. Let's go over here. All right, so functions basically are a way of allowing us to break big things up into smaller, manageable content. So it'll hold a chunk of code that we're working on, or we've worked on, or something that we do often. So we write it once and we can use it often. So we could have it calculate the average hold time on a call. So we can get all the values, we go through all the values that we have them stored, and we can do the average calculation on it by hand or in the code. We can do things like have a function change the color to red, or delete an object, or do all kinds of things inside of that. It's great when you're reusing it, when it's going to be something you're going to do often. So if we go back here into Visual Studio here. Start here is a function. All right. Update is a function. All right. These are functions. We can write other functions. So I'll write another one here. Don't worry too much about what's going on here. I'll kind of talk you through it. So I am actually going to stop this because it's still in edit, or it's still in debug mode. So I'm going to go ahead and jump out of here and go down here. And we are going to write a function here. And let's call it make pancake. All right. Yeah, I guess so. All right, so we're going to call it void. Don't worry about that now. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Just enjoy the voodoo for now. We'll call this make pancake. All right, so we're going to put these parentheses there. All right, and then I put some curly braces. All right, so this is a function. So inside of here, we can do all kinds of stuff. We can take an int called batter and assign it to 5. And we can have an int called stove. Call it 100, or assign it value 100. And we can have an int called skillet. Did I spell that right? I don't know. Doesn't matter. And give it a value of 42. And we can do something like pancake and hey, tried to rename it. That's what's called IntelliSense. Sometimes it's not terribly intelligent, but don't worry about that. It can help you type faster. Int and we're going to add all those together. So we'll add the to the skillet. We're going to add batter. So when we're in these menus like this, if you see what you're trying to type, you can arrow down and hit enter. And one more, we're going to add that whole thing to the stove. All right, so this is a function. We can tell it that we want to run this by going somewhere like over here and calling it. So that's what you do when you try to run a function. You call it. That's the term for it. So we're going to do make pancake. And we're going to open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and a semicolon. So when execution gets down here, so we can put a breakpoint here. Sorry. Put a breakpoint. We're going to attach to Unity and give it a second here. All right, going to run this again. Okay, so we're back here. It skipped all this stuff. Well, it looks like it skipped it. It actually ran it, so it's there. We just didn't watch it. So if we go on here, we skip over this one. Here's where this other one comes in. This step into. Basically, it says go into this function. Step over would run past it. We would run it, but we just wouldn't go into it. So let's go ahead and step into that. So now it jumped down here. And it's going to do all of this. And when it's done, it's going to come out at the end of there. All right, and that's a function in action. Now, all the stuff I'm showing you here is kind of not really useful in a game right this second. We need to show you different things about that. All right. So let's go ahead and jump back here. Alright, so one thing I want to show you before we move on. Right now we've just been kind of doing stuff inside of inside of functions. You haven't really been able to see any sort of output. It's just kind of a theoretical. Take my word on it. It works here, but I want to show you something. Let's go ahead and drop out here real quick, and I'm going to go over to Visual Studio here real quick. All right, so let's go ahead and get rid of this real quick. Get rid of all that stuff we made in here. Erase that. And so there are these certain things that are just basically floating around inside of Unity that we can take advantage of. One of them is a debug object. It's called debug, believe it or not. So we can go in here and type debug. So you notice it's already there. And so this is kind of its own special kind of object. I'm going to go ahead and put a period at the end of it. So what that does is say, inside of that object, let's see what we can do. All right, or let's do something, or access, or change something. I'm going to use what is called a function, basically. It's called log. Alright, so this allows us to basically send a message to Unity. So I'm going to go ahead and, it's a function, so we're going to call it like a function. But functions have this ability to take in information from somewhere else. The make pancake does not take in anything. So I'm going to show you how to pass in something. In this case, we're going to pass in a message. We're going to pass in pancake we're going to pass that into the debug log. All right. So the string pancake was passed in to the log function. That's part of the debug class. We'll understand what class is a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and save it, Control S, and we're going to go back over to Unity here real quick. All right, so if we go here to the console, it's got a few things here it's complaining about. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and hit clear on it if you wish, for now. They were all yellow, so those are warnings. Those are kind of okay right now, but we'll worry about that a little bit. We actually had left it running, so we're going to hit play again. Now, you'll notice here, over down here, in the console, it says pancake. Unity, don't worry about this stuff here. It says pancake. What do we pass in? Well, anything that we pass in to debug log will print out here. It's kind of useful when we're trying to figure things out. So let's do something else. Let's do pancake plus something else. We're going to do what's called string concatenation. It's a fancy way of saying adding strings together. We're going to do a space. We're going to do another plus, and we're going to go 42. All right, so we're going to save again. All right, so let's clear this, All right, and run it. So now it's pancake space 42, or pancake 42. We could go up here and use it for our results. Debug.log. Now it's capital L log. The thing to remember when you're working in code or in a script, capitalization matters most of the time now. So you'll notice here I just put result. Well, that's perfectly valid because we're passing in a variable here. So it's going to tell us, all right, print out log, or print out result. We can do the same thing here. .log. We'll go altitude. All right. Control S saves. All right, so let's go back here and clear this out. And run it again. Hey, there's the altitude, the 20.35, the 5, and the pancake 42. All right, so you're thinking, okay, what good is this? What are we going to do? Well, we're going to move on, and I'm going to show you logic. So now that you can show stuff, let's look at the logic again. So like in Excel, we have if statements. Actually, Excel got if statements from programming languages. So if statements allow you to do some stuff like allows you to make a choice based on some math or logic itself. It uses what's called Boolean logic. Boolean was a smart guy's last name. Basically, things end up being true or false, and we can mathematically, manipulate stuff to find out. All right. Basically, if the results are true, the if statement does what's next, or does what we tell it to do. Otherwise, if it's false, it skips it. And we can tell it to do something if it's false as well. So remember, like in Excel, if something turns out true, it runs the first parameter. If it's false, it runs the second one. We can do the same actions with the if statement here. Okay, so inside of the if statement, we're going to use logical operators. We can use it outside as well, but they're we'll get to that. So logical operators. So we have the and and the if and all that stuff, or the and and the or in Excel. We also had greater than, less than, what we used. But we also have that in C# as well. No, this isn't some crazy, like someone died in a emoticon or something like here. These are, some of our logical operators here. So we have greater than, less than, greater than, less than, equal to. So you'll notice there are two equal signs here. In programming, we have two different uses for the equal sign. A single one is what's called assignment. So it copies what's on the right-hand side and puts it on the left-hand side. All right. With two equal signs, it actually checks to see if they're equal. If they are, it returns true. If not, it returns false. All right, so we also have the exclamation point. So basically, that takes something, if it's true, and turns it false, or if it's false, it turns it true. So it's a not operator. So not true is false, right? Not false is true. Works out that way. All right, and we have the not equal to. So we have the equal to and the not equal to here. So if we want to find out if things are not equal, then we can use that. We also have the and operator and the or operator. So and is on the US keyboard, it's the ampersand, it's above the 7. And the or is actually all the way on the left, the right-hand side on the Mac keyboard. It is above the slash between the return and the delete on the Mac keyboard. So you hold Shift and do that. All right, so 2 of them. And if one is true and the other is true, then then it returns true, or it gives us back true. If one is true and one is false, it returns false because they're not both true. And vice versa. So we can, if they're both false, then of course it returns false. If the first one's false and the second one's true, then it still returns false. With the or, if either one of them or both are true, then it returns true. If they're both false, then it's false. All right, so we have that. Let's go ahead and actually see that in action. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of some of this stuff because we don't need it anymore. All right, so you'll notice that's becoming a red squiggly line because it doesn't know what that is anymore because I deleted it. I'm a mean person by doing that. So let me go ahead and get rid of a few of these things here. All right, so we have our start here because we really only want it to run this once in this case. All right, so let's say I want to test something. So we want to have a choice of doing one of 2 things. So if and you'll notice it created the parentheses for me. So this is what it's supposed to look like. So an if followed by parentheses and what we're checking. If 5 is greater than 3, you see what I did there? Then we're going to do what's in these curly braces. So if 5 is greater than 3, let's see, we can bug.log and say the rules of math survive. So let's try that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save it, Control S, and we're going to drop back over here to Unity and hit clear. And we're going to go ahead and run that. So it tells us the rules of math survive. Hey, look at that. So it did run that. Now, if I did something like 2. So if 2 is greater than 3, which it isn't, obviously, right? It's going to do this. Go back here, Control S, and we're going to clear and run. Look, it didn't do anything. It didn't do anything. Well, that's good. That's a good thing because if we look here, this was not true, so it didn't run this. We can tell it that we want to do something if that's false, right? We can do that. There is something called else. All right, so else, if this is true, do this. else do what's in here. So let's try that. Your math stinks. Here we go. So it noticed this was false. So instead of running this, it ran this. Very handy. It lets us kind of figure things out. Now I'm going to show you something here that's going to kind of be, let's say, kind of a higher level programming concept. Just hang in here with me. It's just one of those things you're going to have to wrap your head around here. Oh, hey, look, it's not showing there. So, and they are what are called classes. All right, so you've seen them in action a little bit, but like in Unity, programming has objects as well. When you're programming something, a lot of people find making objects a lot easier than just putting it all in a big chunk of code. All right, so we have what are called classes. This is what's called object-oriented programming. So classes are chunks of code that represent a specific object or a class of object. So let's look at object. Let's look at an object. So I'm going to turn off the mouse here so I don't do anything to it. All right, so let's look at this mouse here. All right, so it is an object, and it has functionality, and it can kind of store some stuff. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's look at this. So it's, again, like it's an object. It contains things like fields. So fields are kind of like information. In this case, this has one of those funny scrollies. If you press the button, it becomes a free scroll. So it spins. So it kind of has its own storage here. So that'd be a field. Methods. All right, a method is just another name for a function that is part of a class. So it's something it does specifically. Like this mouse, it has a button, a left mouse button, and a right mouse button. It does something with those. You can tell it, hey, click left mouse, click right mouse. So these are kind of things that we can have it do. Of course, we can move around too. We have what are called, in a class, what are called constructors. So these are things that are done at the very beginning when a class is created for the first time. All right, and that by created, I mean not written, but when it first is, I should put it, created in code. So you can create things in code. You saw the start. That's not a constructor. It's just something that runs, but it functions basically the same way. All right. So a class usually represents something, you know, an object, and this is not a one-of-a-kind mice. So this is an MX Master mouse, Logitech MX Master. So we could create a class called Logitech MX Master, and that would be kind of this template for this mouse itself. And you create the object. So basically they manufacture the object, and now I have a specific copy of that. So basically, inside of that, there are these data members, so variables. typically, when you are accessing something inside of a class, it is only available inside of that class, unless you specifically tell it to be public. And then it's accessible outside. And I'll show you how to access out inside and outside. We've actually already done that. You just didn't realize we were doing stuff inside of a class already. That was actually part of the debug. All right, so we have private, so that's hidden inside of it. So it's a private class, or a private object. Now it can be a variable or a function, also known as a method. Now, here's where it gets kind of crazy. We can make classes out of other classes. So this is called inheritance. Again, there's whole classes built on this, so we're kind of skimming over this fairly quickly to kind of give you an idea. At the end, I'm going to give you a link to a few places where you can go into this more in depth. I would suggest it. So this is just kind of like an overview of here. So if you come back after looking at those and watch this video again, it might make what I'm talking about a little bit more sense, and you're understanding why I'm kind of giving you these quick little tidbits of it, because there's a lot behind it. So let's actually go back and look at that class that we were using. Yes, we were using a class. All right, so we have a class here. Let me turn the mouse back on. We have a class here. Come on, Windows, find the mouse. All right, well, I'll just use this for now. All right, so we have a class here. Look at this. It's a public class called test script. And what we see here, we have a colon, and then we have monobehavior. We're going to talk about monobehavior in just a second, but we're inheriting from monobehavior into test script. So monobehavior is giving us functionality. So monobehavior is our parent. Right now, we do not have any public or private variables. We'll mess with those in just a second. Excuse me. Start and update our methods. In this case, they are private methods. So we can't access them, but monobehavior can, and it's all kinds of fun stuff. But let's go ahead and try some stuff here. All right, so you'll notice I'm actually outside of the functions in the class. If we go back here real quick, back to the PowerPoint. We have methods and fields. Methods are those classes or those functions again, and the fields are our class-specific variables. So I can create an int called results. Results. All right. Now, right now, I'm actually missing something here. I'm missing whether it is a private or a public one. So right now, I'm going to just make this public. Public int result. So this is saying we are telling that the outside world can access this result. So let's do something here. If result is greater than 3, then do this. Otherwise, it'll do that. So this result is accessible in start and in update. We can do things on either side of it. Now, something I want to show you, so I'm going to save this real quick. If we go back to Unity, and we see this here, sphere, we now have over where we had our script, we now have a new kind of entry here, result. Right now it's filled in with 0. Let's make it 10. Save it. Oops, covered. So we made it 10. I'm going to go and clear this out. Oops. And we're going to run it. Now that first one happened. Look back at the code. 10 is greater than 3. That happened. If we turn this, if we stop it again, I'm going to go ahead and clear this. Click on sphere again, and go over here and change this to a 1 and run it. Your math stinks. So we are able to mess with stuff here. We're able to change things on the outside with a public variable. All right, so these are things that are accessible outside. Here we have, let's do a private string called username. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. And if we go back out here, you notice it's not there. It doesn't show up. That private variable is only accessible inside of this script, or inside of this this class. So we can do anything we want to it, but only inside of that. All right. Debug is a special kind of class. Well, actually, it's part of a class, but it's a special type, and we're accessing it like that. We're calling a function inside of that. We're calling a log, basically, when we're passing information in. So that period says, all right, in this class, go to the run the log function, basically, and do something. Excuse me. Sorry. One more thing I want to show you. Public game object. And something. Snowman. Alright, so it's not just numbers that we can deal with in this case. And this is something Unity specific that we'll be looking at in a second. If I go back here, it's not showing snowman. None, game object. What's really cool is watch this. We can go here. Oops. See, that's the problem with not using my mouse here, which is still not. Go back over here, drag the snowman. So what you have to do is leave that highlighted, just grab it before it changes, and all right, hold on, give me just half a second here, let me reconnect my mouse. This is another reason why mice are really important, because it works out a lot better. Put this back here, put sphere, and drag that snowman down here. Alright, now we can access that specific snowman inside of the sphere script. Alright, we're going to look at that a little bit. Now, here's something that's going to kind of mess with you, and it's going to kind of throw you off every once in a while. Now, you notice I edited that while it was playing. So I went down here and dropped that in there. But when I stopped playing, it goes away. While you are running the game in here, you can modify the stuff, but it's not permanent. So right now, while it stopped, is the only time you're going to be able to make it permanent. So I'm going to drag the snowman down here again into our game object. All right. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so let's go ahead and jump back into the PowerPoint. Let's talk about some Unity specific things. Game object, like I said, is specific to Unity. Allows us to manipulate things like objects like color and movement and position and all kinds of stuff. We can do crazy things. Everything is built off of this, so that's why we can make all these changes to it fairly easy. All Unity classes inherit from MonoBehavior. Everything in Unity, will inherit from MonoBehavior, or it won't work right. So we kind of saw that already. It gives us some useful functionality. Again, the movement, turning things on and off, all kinds of things. All right, so let's look at kind of making changes. We can move things. We can react to touch. We can change the properties of stuff. So let's go ahead and look at doing that. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and start affecting changes to the world. So we've done this. This is cool. It can work, but let's do something. So in the code here, we have a few things set up already. One of them being a game object we called Snowman that we've copied, that we've actually gone over here to Unity and said grab one of the snowmen and drug them in here. So the first snowman, we've drug them in there. All right, so let's do something kind of interesting. Well, let's do a few things. First thing let's go ahead and try. Let's go ahead and try and snowman and move the snowman dot. All right, transform. So look, it's already knowing what we're trying to transform, and we're going to translate. So this is kind of if you ever had some higher level math stuff, you might recognize some of these terms here. So we're going to go through here. Now, functions can have different sets of what are called parameters. So when we pass something in, it's called a parameter. We can have different counts of those. So what I'm doing is I'm going through them and finding one that fits what I want to use. So in this case, we're just going to have it move in XYZ position. So first one we're going to do is fill out the X. So we're not going to move at all on the X axis. We're going to move on the Y. We're going to move just a little bit on the Y axis, and not at all on the Z axis. All right, so remember the update is called about once a frame. So it's usually quite accurate on that. So I'm going to go ahead and save, and let's go ahead and see that in action. All right, so let me go ahead and move this here so it's easier to see. Let's drop it a little closer here so we have a better view of the scene. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Hey, look at that. The snowman is taking off. That one's a kind of an easy one here. Let's go ahead and try something else. So we can move it in all kinds of different directions if we want, but that one's kind of an easy one there. So that one's translating that. Oh, something I want to show you. So these are what are called comments. They're basically notes in code. If you do a / like that, and then you can type anything you want behind it. It's also kind of handy if you want to disable part of code. So if I want to disable that, / it's no longer going to run that code. Now, next thing I want to show you is, well, let's change some color. This is going to take a little bit, so I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit about it as I go. So there is something called the renderer. Yeah, it's a mouthful right there. It's basically in charge of kind of presenting data to the engine on how to show something, and we're going to use that information. We're gonna to change some stuff on it. So Snowman is actually kind of this group of things. Alright, inside that group of things, we have to find a specific piece that we need. So we want that bottom, object, because that's like the first thing there. We are looking for something, there's a function here called get component in children. And has little brackets on it. They're greater than less than on it. We're going to put in renderer. Basically, this says anything that's attached. Any of the things that are attached. Give me one of these guys. Give me a renderer out of it. So let's go ahead and modify that. Now that we have that assigned, we can go into its materials. Remember how I modified the sphere? You know, I dropped that material onto it. Well, this is what we're modifying. Material dot set color. All right, so we have to tell it a specific thing. We want to modify the real color of this, so it's underscore color. End quote. Alright, and we want to set it to something. I don't know, let's see. I'm doing color.red. Alright, so this is kind of just a shortcut. We could go in and set the values, anything, but let's just take the shortcut for now, just so it's not quite so bad. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and we're going to try to run it again. Hey, look at that. It's red now. Alright, so yeah, that worked out pretty well, didn't it? Alright, so, well, let's bring in some input. Alright, we are going to actually, how about we change this under specific conditions. So, if here's one for you. Input dot let's see. About any key. If it input dot any key. Actually. Let's see. If that is equal to true, then we're going to do this. Alright, so if you're writing code, there's sometimes a way to lay stuff out. So if you're doing like okay, this is, we're doing this if statement and we want you to do this stuff. So we kind of indented a little bit to make it easier to read. So let's try this. Alright, so we're going to save, and we're going to run this. Press the key, and it changed it red. Alright, so let's do this. Let's go back here real quick. Let's save this color that we're changing, so we can change it back. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go up here, and we're going to create a private color. and we'll call it original color. The American way of spelling it, the proper way, right? Alright, so we're going to grab this real quick. So one of the cool things about programming is copying and pasting is cool, is something you can do. Alright, so there is something that's smiled upon. Alright, so we are going to do original color, and we're going to set that equal to r.get. I'm sorry, get. Material dot, sorry, forgot the material, color. We can also do get color as well, so, but we just want color in this case. Alright, so now that we've done that, so we've set the color of the snowman into original color. Now, we could do some dirty tricks here and do this earlier and only do this once, but we're going to not do that for now. So you remember the else? We can use that in this case. Otherwise, if we are going to set it back to the same color. Original color. Alright, so let's go ahead and save this, and we're going to run it. See? Cool, huh? Alright, so that works out. We can do different things with that. Now, one thing that we haven't done is show you how to move around. So, to do that, we're going to go ahead and add something here. We need to add, let's see, component. Let's see, miscellaneous. Nope, not miscellaneous. Excuse me. Actually, we need to import a package. This is going to make our life a lot easier. Cameras. So, by importing a package, it brings us all kinds of new things here. So I'm going to go ahead and import this. And what it's going to do is it's going to load a whole bunch of things. It's actually doing that in the background right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this standard assets folder, and we are looking for cameras. See, we have cameras there, and then prefabs. So these are a few different just cameras. We have some input that we can deal with. Prefabs here as well. So we have a car tilt, touch controls, mobile, things like that. Really though, this isn't what we need. Let's go ahead and look at some other ones here. Let's see, it's cross-platform input. Is that, yeah, that's what I already added. So let's go ahead and bring in a character. Or characters. Okay, so we're going to bring in a whole bunch of other things too. So, alright, so it's going to bring in all kinds of little pieces of data for us. There are different um, different ways of handling input. There are different tools that we can use for um, the games that we want to make. So let me go ahead and shrink some of this stuff here. So we're going to go back here to standard. And we're going to look at characters here. Let's go ahead and add in a first person. Okay, so we're going to prefab. And we're going to bring in what's called a rigid body first person controller. So it's kind of a first person shooter controller. So it's going to kind of just show up here. Let's go ahead and just add it in like that. Alright, so you see this kind of green thing here? That's showing the body. It's what's called a rigid body. So that's kind of where the character will be. Alright, and that's a camera there. So it has its own camera. Now we can actually go ahead and get rid of this main camera. So we're going to go ahead, well, we have a choice. We could delete it, or we could just uncheck it here, which kind of just disables it for now. So let's go ahead and give it a run here. We're probably going to fall through the floor. Nope, we didn't. Cool. Now you notice we have a working thing here. All right, so let's look at that. So we can walk around. It actually still works for us here. And we can run into these things. All right, just so you know, if you were to not have Unity, that would be a lot of work. This would be weeks or about a week's worth of work to get this up and running properly, as we have it right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of there. We have other things here too. Let me go ahead and get rid of that first-person body camera. Delete. And we're going to bring in the third person. Let's see, prefab. Alright, so we need to find that. Alright, so actually let's go ahead and delete that one more time. And it's a lot easier just to bring it like that. You're like, oh hey, a real character. So let's give it a try. Uh-oh. We missed our we're missing a camera. So it wants a camera, so let's go ahead and fix that. So let's go ahead and re-enable that camera. And if we click on here, we're going to go over here and look at the inspector here. So it's looking for a camera. So we need to go through here and find where it wants the camera at. Capsule, third person, use controls. Actually, I think it might not even need that. Alright, so let's go and retry. Yep, it already had one in there. Okay, so this is kind of a third person control. So I can move around here. Alright, so those animations and everything are already set up for us. We don't actually... it doesn't actually automatically do animation for us. Sorry. Sorry, guys. This is kind of deceiving how easy this is. Alright, so we could attach things to him and how it deals with the camera and stuff like that. So we can change the different types of movement and how things work. Use gravity. Well, we have that. We have all kinds of stuff that we can do. So we could do something like this. Let's see what that does. So it's attached to him, but it's kind of far off, so it's going to look kind of funny here. Let's see if we can move the camera a little bit closer to behind him. It's probably not too terribly bad. Now, there are special types of cameras and all that stuff to make this work better. But this will do for now. Alright, so now that we can see that and we have input there, there is something we can do. We can have him running into it cause changes. So let's go ahead and let's see. Let's let it fix that. We can actually have it do stuff for us. So let's go ahead and get into that. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this sphere. Okay, so if we could drop here real quick, our script is actually attached to this sphere. So this is the one that all our stuff is running on, even though it's affecting that snowman over there. So let's do something to this sphere. Let's make it, if our character runs into the sphere, it turns, I don't know, green. So let's give that a try. So let's go over here. We need to make a function, void, and this one has a special name because Unity would be looking for this. So on collision spell down, enter. All right, and it takes it is passed in something called the collision. Call. All right, so we're not actually going to use that, but a call, a parameter that's passed in, is something that we could use if we wanted. So call dot, we could do things with this. This is giving us information, but in this case, we don't care at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here. I'm going to grab. How about we do this? Better yet, this one right here. We're going to copy that, and we're going to paste that down here. All right. So instead of modifying the snowman, we're going to modify what this class, this script, is attached to. So there's a keyword called this that it really says, all right, modify this thing that we're in right now. All right, so instead of red, let's turn it green. So they have both the English and the the American way of spelling it. All right, so that's on collision enter. So when we collide it, or when we enter the collision area, it will run this. So there's also an exit version of it. Void. Actually, let's just copy and paste because it's literally the same thing. Go down here and paste. So it's complaining that there's already something called on collision enter. So let's go ahead and fix that here. Okay, on collision enter and on collision exit, and we're going to set this to color.white, I believe. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. All right, and go back to Unity here, and we're going to go ahead and hit play on this. All right, so let's go ahead and turn around here, and we're going to walk towards this. Dun 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 Hey, look, it turned green. We collided with it. And if we kind of get out of it, the area, uh, it will turn white again. Or turn normal again. Yes. See, green, not green. Green, not green. Cool, huh? Alright, so you can do things. I could walk into that sphere and have that snowman take off. There's just all kinds of things that you can do. Alright, so now that we've spent a whole bunch of time on that, let's actually continue on here. So we've looked at a lot of stuff. So we've moved things, we've reacted to touch, and we've changed properties. So we've moved stuff around. All right. So we've shown you that, and actually, that's the end of the slideshow. Um, Now we said we were going to create a kind of a snow scene, kind of a winter holiday scene. One thing I want to show you before we get too far is we are going to import a model. So let's go ahead and pull up Maya here. All right. Close this out here. All right, so let's create something here real quick. How about a let's create a hat. Now this is going to be way too big because we are not scaling properly at this point, so I'm not going to worry about that too much because we can scale it in in Unity. That wasn't exactly aligned as I expected it to be. Here we go, that's going to be better. Alright. So remember, I'm using Option to kind of rotate around things. Of course, now we want a toroid here. Or a donut, which sounds better, doesn't it? Oops. It looked right. Okay. Let's center this here. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so that's pretty much centered. Let's try selecting cone. It's a little bit off, but we can fix that. Alright, let's try grabbing the sphere. And that's way off, isn't it? Alright, so that's, it's okay. It's not terribly bad. So we're going to go ahead and save this real quick, just so we have something here, just in case I break it. Alright, let's go back to our normal view that we used to. Okay, so let us export. Alright, so we have My Binary, Mails, Movies, all this stuff. So, let's actually try something else here real quick. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that way. Alright, we'll just have to export. Okay, we're going to save this as leave a DXF will do. Actually, let's do FBX. And hat. Export. Where do we export that to? That's a good question. That one all the way there. Let's go ahead and just do a second export of the hat. Alright, so let's go here. Assets. Import new asset. Desktop. So it, let's see, our desktop. Look at that. Hat.fbx. Import. There is a hat. Let's go ahead and drag it in here and see what it looks like. Oh, actually, it's pretty small. So it's small. We can fix that, though. Let's go ahead and increase the size. All right. Please excuse my programmer art. This was something that was very quickly, as you saw, created. So it's not pretty. But it will work. You get the idea. That's terrible, isn't it? But we have a hat on one of our snowmen that we created in Maya. Look at that. Now, that's pretty cool, isn't it? And of course, it's actually made of different components here. Those are the components that we use to make it in Maya. So, that's pretty cool, isn't it? Okay, so let me show you one or two other things here before we get too far away and we finish. First of all, we need to save. Oh, yeah, we definitely need to save. We haven't saved anything yet. So if we would have crashed, we would have been out of luck. Alright, so, winter. So let's go ahead and save that. Alright, and we're going to save... we've saved our scene. Let's go ahead and save our project. Alright, so we've done that. Now, here's where it gets really cool. We can actually build a game out of this. Alright, so right now it's set up for Windows. I'm going to go ahead and add our scene in, so it's going to automatically start that. Let me go ahead and do a build and run. And it's asking, where do you want to put it? We're going to leave it right here. So, Gonna let it build. It's actually setting everything up for us, making the executable and everything. So this sometimes can take a little bit, but hey, look, we can set a resolution and set the graphics quality. Well, we didn't change anything, so we'll see how this works. We're gonna go ahead and run full screen. See which screen it runs on here. Hey, the main screen. Very good. Look, it's our guy, and he can run around. Let's get that collision to happen there. Hey, look at that. Oops, but he got stuck in it, so. And there's our hat. There's our silly hat. Alright? We're getting stuck in stuff. So that's something you're gonna, you'd work on when testing. Don't go off the edge because you'll fall. And you will constantly fall. Alright, so here's the fun part. Alt F4 will get you out of that. Alt F4. You'll have to hit FN key to do that. We can build on other things. We can actually build it where it will run if you host it on a website. You can do an iOS build if you have the right license. You can do it on Android. Some other device, actually, I don't know what that is. I think it's a small device, I don't know. Your Windows Store stuff, you can set it to do universal, so this will run on all kinds of stuff. Windows Phone directly, WebGL, which is new, Samsung TVs, BlackBerry. Now, the Xbox 360, One, PS3, Vita, PS4, all require extra licenses. Now, it's not showing Wii U on here right now, but it is available for Wii U. So, yeah, if I were to try to build for iOS right now, it would just basically create a project for me to run in Xcode. So, we have our scenes. Let's do one more thing here real quick. Let's create a brand new scene. It's not going to have anything in it. Alright, so let's drop something in here. Game object, 2D object. Sorry. 3D object. Plane. It's just a plane. Alright, and of course we're going to increase its size. We have a huge plane here. We are going to drop. Let's increase this so it's easier to see. Here's a third person. Prefab. Third person. Controller. There's the body. Skeleton. This is for animation, stuff like that. Is our main camera. Now, we can, let's see, let's add a different kind of camera in this case. I remember how we pulled in the camera. Well, let's go ahead and drag this guy in here. Alright, so handheld camera. Right now it's disabled. Let's turn off the main camera. Alright, so the handheld camera more than likely is going to require a target. So we are going to make Ethan the target. Alright, so let's give this a try. See what happens. Actually, we should find Ethan here real quick. There he is. So let's see what this does here. So Ethan's way over there. Alright, so our camera is way, way far away. So let's fix that here. Let's see. Let us. Let's actually just remake that. Let's drop this guy in here. Actually, instead of a handheld, let's do a CCTV camera. Just undo that because I just moved it. Where is that? Yeah, it's right there, isn't it? Alright, so we want our target again. Make Ethan our target once again. Okay. Let's take a look at it. Oh, hey, we're missing a camera. What's wrong? Oh, I put in the wrong one. I'm probably missing a camera here. Turret look at. Next update. Okay, so we're not going to put that in. I'll have to. Oh, it's not turned on. Details. Okay, so Ethan is way out there. So we're going to have him run towards us. And you'll notice the camera, it just keeps looking at us. So this is a true CCTV camera here. There we go. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So it's actually following them. Okay, so let me go ahead and save this. We're going to save this scene as Big Brother. Okay, so we've saved that. Let's go ahead and go back. If we go back here to assets, it's going to have all of our stuff here. Let's go ahead and go back to winter. Alright, so we're actually kind of like not looking at what we expected. Alright, so we're way over there. So let's do something. Let's set also instead of it turning green when we or turning white when we leave, let us do this. Okay, so application dot load level. And we're going to call, and this one is called Big Brother. Big semicolon. Alright, so let's save that. Alright, so we have to go back over here, and to make this work, we have to actually add the second one in there. So let's give this a try here. So we can turn around and run into that. So it'll turn green when we run into it. Now when we leave, it just loaded the next level. Isn't that cool? So you can always reload the same level. There's many things out here. Actually, I'm going to stop at this point because we have a lot of stuff here. I'm going to create some alternate ones that kind of give you a little bit of the ability to play with this stuff. So, so we kind of had a winter scene there. We modified stuff and had it move around. So we'll get back to other things. I'm going to go ahead and stop now, and I'm going to go ahead and make a little side video for people who want to learn more or who don't know anything and want to learn more. So, see you then, and thanks for listening. Alright, so one last thing that we're going to show you here real quick. It's pretty important because without it, we're going to have a silent movie, and that is audio. So let's go ahead and set this up. There are two things to remember on for audio in Unity. There are two parts to it. So we have an audio listener. This is what we're going to hear. So if it's a camera, it follows us around, things like that. And we have another part called the audio source. There are other parts that allow us to modify it and make it do strange things. But really what we need is these two parts. Well, we need a third part, which is actually the sound itself. So there are two things we want to do here. We want play on awake to be checked so it starts automatically. I mean, we could trigger it manually, that's fine. And we also have loop. So if you want your music to loop, you need to set that as well. We can change these here, but we really don't need to right now. So now I'm going to go ahead and import our music asset. I found one that would probably, you know, I guess work out with this. It's a remix of several songs, so we'll see how well YouTube handles this one. Alright, so it's importing it right now. It's doing conversions and it's getting stuff ready. It's getting it packed and doing all kinds of fun stuff. So now we have this file here. We could actually listen to it right here if we wanted to. Alright, that's pretty cool. So, but what we want to is we want to bring this audio clip into the audio source. Now, we could just drag that in here, or we could hit this button and it would show you all the stuff that would work. So these are Ethan's sounds, the character's sounds. We're going to choose Christmas one there. So let's go ahead and give this a try. So we have audio now. So that is what we have. We can change settings here if we wanted to. We can change priority, all that fun stuff, but we don't need to. All right. So enjoy. I hope to see some awesome things too.